Hi Stampers, this is Kim at Great Inspirations. Thank you for joining me today. We are going to talk about this card and others similar to it. I am calling this the cutting edge because this card base is not a typical card base. I have cut off 1 inch from the card front, and in that 1 inch space I have put this piece of pattern paper, and then of course I have some white cardstock over here to stamp a greeting and write a message. But this is something, a technique I use from time to time if I have strips of pattern paper that I want to kind of use up, because this does take, like I said, this is probably like 1.25 inches wide by 5.5 inches long, and it just adds a little extra zip to the card. But what if you wanted to add a little more extra zip? And what if you didn't want to just cut a straight edge? What are some things you can do? Well, if you have border dies, you could use those. And I have several of those right here. This is a few of the ones that I have. Let me kind of bring this in to corral them. And these are all from Stampin' Up, and I believe they're all retired. I have some from, I think, Spellbinders and Sizzix. Lots of companies make them. And I did look, and there are many available from many different companies. You can just do a search, and you probably have some yourself. But these dies will allow you to cut an edge that's not just straight. And I do have some examples here. Actually, I have lots of examples. For example, this card with the little pointed border was created using, I can't get them up, this die. It was very easy. I just, my cardstock, it was a full panel in the front, and I just laid it along the edge of the cardstock. Got it all centered. I marked the center point, and that is 2 3/4 inches because this is 5.5 inches wide. Ran it through my die cut machine, and this is the edging it gave me. So make a wish, wishing you a happy birthday. As you can see here, I've used a full panel of pattern paper that's 4 1/4 by 5.5, and just cut some white cardstock to stamp my greeting. Now this one I made with this border. Now what I did with this, because I wanted more of the pattern paper to show, I cut my card base differently. Instead of 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4 1/4, I cut it 7.5 by 5.5. and still scored at 4 1/4 along the 7.5 inch edge. That forms this 1 inch strip over here, and you could do that with the first card I showed you. You don't have to cut a full card base. You could just cut it 7.5 by 5.5. But then I put this die along the edge of that shortened border, got everything centered, and ran it through the die cut machine, and this was the edging I got, and this is the look I got for my card. And this one, I did the same thing. I cut off a bit of the panel. I think what I did, I drew a line at 1, and then this die, at 1 inch. Then this die, I put I have to line it up here. I put at the 1 inch mark that I'd made on my cardstock, and I ran it through my die cut machine, and this is what I had. Time to celebrate. And of course we have the pattern paper and the white cardstock. I'm piling those up for a different reason. Oh, this one goes over here. Now this one, I used this kind of like an arc or an arch, and I did just put it on the edge of my cardstock and ran it through. And that's how I did that. Now these dies that I have right here, they don't cut a definitive border. What they do, and you may have some of them, they cut a design that leaves little holes in the cardstock. I'll show you what I mean. These cards right here, I made this with this die. I simply put my card base, laid this, got it all lined up. So we have pretty much the same amount on this end, cardstock that is, and on this end, ran it through. Picked up the die, moved it, lined it up, right in line with the bottom of this die cut, put it in my die cut machine and ran it through. You could have done that all along this piece of cardstock if you wanted, but I only did 2 rows, and that's the design it gave me. Now for that design to really pop, I just took a piece of white cardstock and adhered to the back. So there's happy birthday, treat yourself. Now for this one, I used this die, and it was the same process. I just lined it up on my card base, ran it through, took it off, lined it up underneath the previous cut, and ran it through my die cut machine, and it gave me that design. And there are several, I've seen several similar dies on the market that will give you this type of a look. So there are the ways you can create those looks with dies. Now you're like, well, what if I don't have any dies, or what if I don't have these dies? Do I have to go out and buy dies? Of course not. We're going to find a way to make similar edgings on cards without dies. So the first one we're going to do, of course, is this one. Like I said, you just take a card base, and this one is 8.5 by 5.5, and we're going to, it's already scored at 4 1/4. And what we're going to do, we're just going to put this in here at 1 inch in the trimmer. And we're going to cut. Now this cardstock that I'm using right here, I hesitate to call it cardstock because it's quite thin. I don't even know where I obtained it, but I have it, and so this is what I use when I'm just making sample cards and trying to figure out card designs. So I have a piece of pattern paper here. We'll just stick in here, and you can see there is that design. That's just how easy that is to create. So we'll move along from the straight edge, and now let's these, you're gonna need dies, but I wanted to show you them anyway. But we'll move along to, let's see, let's do the ones that are, we're gonna cut and measure. This one. So to get a look similar to this card, I just used a pencil and a ruler and did some measuring. And I will say this was a full card front. This one I did the 7.5 by 5.5. So it's not quite, the front doesn't come out quite as far. You can choose, even with a die, you could put your die back farther and have a shorter card front, or one that's not so wide. But this one, I wanted it to look a little bit more like an envelope. It says Merry Christmas, happiest of holidays. And I know it does not stand up, it falls. But what this actually is, it's a gift card holder. And I have a little gift card and it is stuck in there. There we go. And all I did was I took a strip that's 2 inches by 5.5 and I put tear and tape adhesive along the outer edges and the bottom, not the top. I took my bone folder, just kind of loosened it up a bit and was able to slip that gift card in there just like that. Now, you could make this all in one piece, but I will do a video on that at another time. But for now, our focus is going to be on how to create this triangled flap for your card. So what we're going to do is we'll go ahead and we'll take a card base that is 7.5 by 5.5, scored at 4 1/4. And we're going to get a pencil and a ruler. Now we know this is 5.5. So 5.5, we need to divide that in 2 to find the midpoint. That is 2 3/4. So we're going to put our ruler right here, find the 2 3/4, and mark it. Then, for this look, I went down 2 inches on each side. So I measure 2 inches over. I guess not down, it's actually over. Make a little mark. That's not 2 inches, I forgot. This ruler starts a little bit before 1. There's 2 inches. And we'll go over here, 2 inches. And then we'll get the trimmer. And I know you know what we're going to do. We've done this a lot. We're going to put our mid mark in the trough and this little mark we made down here at 2 inches in there. And we're going to cut. Then we'll just do it on the other side, just like we did for this side. Find the 2 inch mark, put the midpoint mark in the little cutting trough, and I like to start kind of in the middle when I'm cutting angles so that your points stay sharp. And let's see if we have that look. We'll flip this over. It all goes the same way. So yeah, there we go. There's a little envelope look. Of course, you could orient it this way as well. So that is how I did this with the little triangle point there. And it does look similar to this. Okay, let's put this one away. Now, here's another one that is very similar to the one with the triangle. We have 2 angles here and a straight edge. So here is the card I made to have a similar look to this. And again, I started with one of those short card bases. Hope I have another one over here. And it is, again, 7.5 by 5.5, scored at 4 1/4. And I'm going to put this here because I need to look at it or I will mess this up royally. What we need to do, we're going to measure over, wait a minute here. Yeah. We're going to measure over, no. See, I told you I'd mess this up. We're going to measure down. First we measure that way to the left, 1/2 of an inch. Then we're going to measure on this other side, measure over 1/2 of an inch. Then along our edge here. Oh, I've lost my, okay. Along our edge here, we're going to go over 1 inch from the top, and then 1 inch from the bottom. And we'll get our trimmer again. And we're going to do pretty much what we did for the previous card. To 1 inch and a 1/2 inch cut. Well, I think I missed a little on that, but that's okay. Don't do that. And then we'll just line these two up again. And we'll get our paper. And any pencil marks, you can just erase them. And there we go. There's that edge, the little angled edge. And it does look similar to the die. Okay. Now, put that one away. And now we have something a little bit, no, yeah, we'll do this one. A little bit different. This one had that zigzagged edge. It was kind of like a, like rickrack is what I called it. But I thought, now how can I recreate that? And I happened to be looking around my craft room, and on a shelf that I have way up high, there was a bucket. And in that bucket, well, it's not really even a bucket. It's this tea tin. And in it were all my shaped scissors. And I thought, oh, I literally had to dust them off. It's been years since I've used them. And actually, I'm kind of glad that I got them down, because my granddaughter, she's 8 years old. She loves to come in my craft room and craft, and this would be something she would love. She would absolutely love using these. So I need to remember and keep them down for her to use. But from them, I took out the ones, the pinking edge ones, like pinking shears. And I thought that would work. So the card I came up with is right here. And just see that, I don't know if you can really even see that edge all that well. It may show up better maybe against cardstock. It's wrapped, this is the one that is kind of the same shape, but doesn't resemble the die as much as the others. But I still like it. And all I did was I took a piece of cardstock, just regular, see if I have one that isn't cut to pieces here. I have all kinds of these over here. Okay, here's one. Just need to fold it. So what I did was I took a ruler. Been doing that a lot here lately, huh? And I marked at 1 inch. And then I marked down here at 1 inch. Then I put this between the two marks and drew a line. Then I took my scissors here and I cut right below the line. I don't know, for me, cutting below it worked better because then I could just fold this, not worry about it. But it gave me more control. If you would feel better cutting above the line, you can certainly do that. And I just move my scissors along to keep the pattern going correctly. We're off just a little bit there. And there we go. Then I just have to go back and, of course, erase the line. And we have our paper. And there is that edge. And like I said, this is the one that I think is, it's the same shape, but it's not as similar to this as the others, but you still get the idea. So there's that edge. And now the last one that we're going to do today, remember this like arced die? This is the card I made with it. Well, here's a card I made. And I'm calling it a template, but it's not a template. I'll show you what it is. It's a lid. And it's actually a lid from frog tape. I use this container and I keep my tear and tape in it. But I needed something that was wide enough to span my cardstock. And I have a couple of larger round dies, but they're deckled. And I wanted this smooth edge. So I'll show you what I did to get that. I just took a regular 8.5 by 5.5, scored it 4 1/4. Just kind of fold it here. And then what I did, I decided how far into my card am I willing to let this go? I thought, an inch. And I thought, no, maybe 1.5 inches. And I think I finally settled on 2 inches. So what I did, I measured down 2 inches and I marked it. And did the same thing at the bottom. Now, whatever you have that will span your cardstock will work. This, has a circular shape here. And I should probably mark the center as well, although it's not as critical as with some of the other cards. But it kind of helps to give you a kind of a place to shoot for. Now here are my marks that I don't want to come down my card base any farther. So I line up, get it lined up in the center as best I can, and if I can see my marks, and I do, and then I'm just going to follow the edge. Now this one didn't quite hit the mark, so we're going to have to do a little adjustment. Oh, it didn't. Something went very awry there. Let's flip this way. Measure. Oh, there went my head on the camera. Okay, let's get this up here a little bit more. Find my line. Found it. Now let's see. That's a little better. So now all we need is our scissors. I have some over here somewhere. And we're going to just follow this line. Cut as smoothly as you can. And then we'll go back and we'll erase the pencil marks. Dump that in my trash can. Let's see how that looks. Oops. And there we go. Here's the one with the die. And here's the one I made with the frog tape lid. And there's the one we just made together. So, clean up all my mess here. And we'll bring out the cards. That one's with the die. And that one is with the template, the frog tape lid. This is the one with the die. And here's the one with the decorative scissors, the die. And this is the one that we did the measuring. And then here is our, whoops, that's the wrong one. There's the one with the die. And then here's our little envelope flap. And then here's the one that we've just cut an inch off the card base and used the pattern paper. Running out of room, aren't I? And then of course there are these two that I use those special dies on. So there you have it. That's the cutting edge. So maybe this week, if you have some time, you can practice some of these edges with or without dies, and maybe come up with your own way to give a cutting edge to your cards. Now, as always, measurements, supplies, and the cutting measurements for these angles and the like, and how to do the thing with the template. You know, that frog tape. And this is not a sponsor, it's just something that I use. I just use this all the time if I need a circle and I know I kind of have to move it because it has this flat bottom. And also the container is great for storing my tear and tape. It fits in there just great. So anyway, recycle, you know. So anyway, that is it for today, and all the information on these cards will be found on my corresponding blog post. And the link to that blog post can be found in the description of this video. Thank you for joining me today, and until next time, stamp happy.